In 1938, a 4-year-old girl went missing in the English countryside. Her family spent hours in a panic, eventually calling in the local police to search the grounds. They eventually found her exactly where she had been for 5 hours, crouched in the corner of a dark henhouse, sitting perfectly still so she could finally see how a hen produces an egg. That childhood curiosity required a specific kind of internal quiet, a willingness to wait until the world around her forgot she was there and simply went about its business. This instinct to observe without interfering was the only real tool she carried when she eventually stepped into a scientific community that prioritized control over curiosity. By 1960, the established scientific view treated animals as biological clockwork, creatures driven by instinctual programming rather than any internal emotional life. Researchers were taught to maintain a clinical distance, assigning their subjects numbers instead of names, to ensure no trace of human empathy could color the data. When 26-year-old Jane Goodall arrived at Tanzania's Gombe stream, she had no university degree and no formal training in these rigid academic protocols. Because she hadn't been taught how she was supposed to watch, she simply sat with the chimpanzees, viewing them without the traditional filter of detached observation. By skipping the traditional classroom, she bypassed the mental barriers that often kept trained researchers from recognizing the individual personalities right in front of them. Her first 6 months in the forest were a lesson in failure. She spent 180 days on a high peak with binoculars, watching the chimpanzees flee the moment they caught her scent. Instead of trying to get closer, she focused on staying still, making herself a constant, non-threatening fixture of the landscape until her presence was no longer a cause for alarm. For Goodall, attention wasn't something to be rushed or demanded. It was a state earned through an agonizingly slow pace. Only by yielding to the rhythm of the forest did she cross the line from a human intruder to an accepted neighbor. Once she was accepted, Goodall broke with convention entirely. She threw out the numbers and began recording the lives of individuals she named David Graybeard, Flo, and Goliath. Seeing the chimpanzees as individuals allowed her to document a social complexity that clinical distance had missed, from distinct personalities and deep familial bonds to the capacity for organized violence. This proximity eventually led to an observation that forced a total rethink of what it means to be human: a chimpanzee stripping leaves off a twig to fish for termites. It was the first time a non-human had been seen making a tool. The discovery was so significant that her mentor, Louis Leakey, famously remarked that we must now either redefine man, redefine tool, or accept chimpanzees as human. While critics argued that her empathy would cloud her judgment, it actually provided the necessary focus to document a level of sentience that the old rules had made impossible to see. In the late 1980s, Goodall's perspective shifted again. Flying over the region, she witnessed the massive, rapid deforestation shown in red here, a literal erosion of the habitat she had spent decades studying. Watching that landscape vanish changed the nature of her work. She realized that witnessing a crisis demanded more than just meticulous note-taking. It required a move toward active protection. She left the quiet life of a field researcher behind, spending the next several decades traveling 300 days a year to speak on behalf of the environment. She linked the survival of wildlife to the well-being of the people living nearby, launching community-led programs like Roots and Shoots that empowered local populations to become the primary defenders of their own ecosystems. To Goodall, our current environmental crisis is the result of a disconnect, a world where our cleverness as a species has outpaced our compassion. Ultimately, she showed us that hope is a practical choice, a commitment to action that begins by paying the same deep, empathetic attention